welcome to a DIY tutorial on how to build a bin cage for your rat, hamster, or mouse. In this series I'm going to be focusing mainly on rats, but this one in particular can be used for a multiple of small animals due to how simple it is to keep these animals in bin cages if you get the proper size. Going over, you'll see me quickly flash on the camera the different tools that I'm using. I'll go over, and as well as have a list below on what I am using. Unfortunately, the audio, I was originally just going to have this in real time of me recording, but unfortunately there was a loud siren sound that lasted pretty much the entire video that I have no idea where it came from, because when I was recording, I couldn't hear it. So, going over really quickly, you are going to need a bin, a plastic bin of some sort. For rats, the size you're going to want is 110 quart to 116 quart. The bin that I'm working on currently isn't used for rats, but it's just an example since the steps that you use to make these are all the same. For mice and hamsters, you're going to need ones that are adequate to those animal sizes as well, and remember that hamsters do need a lot of space, so probably the same size as a rat. I would just stick with 110 to 116 quart. The tools that you'll see me using are a Dremel, X-Acto blade, or a box cutter, drill bits, and a hot knife, as well as pliers and shears in order to cut through the metals and the different materials that I'm using. You're also going to be needing some form of zip ties, whether you're just using wire, plastic zip ties, or metal zip ties. I suggest using metal zip ties for rodents, seeing that they do like to chew, and they can chew through plastic zip ties with ease, and they will happily chew through and escape. Metal zip ties are just a little bit more than you would get for plastic ones, and they work so much better. So getting into the basics of this, you'll see that I have drawn out a rectangle the best way I could. I took a straight edge and just drew a rectangle where I wanted to cut. This one does have a food holder on top of it, and I believe I'll be showing it relatively soon. That fits in that perfect little area that I cut out, and that's just easy access for the animal to get food and water, and without the food and water becoming dirty from the bedding. You'll also see that I'm cutting out all 4 of the windows. There are some people who say that you only need to cut out 2, but I am a firm believer on giving as much ventilation as you can to the creature that's going to be living inside these, simply because it just helps reduce a risk of upper respiratory infection and other problems that may arise without proper ventilation. The tool I'm using is a metal cutting bit on a Dremel. This Dremel is a plug-in Dremel, but not the high-end one that has multiple speeds. It's just the $40 one that you can get at Walmart that plugs in, and all the Dremel bits for this brand will work with it and really well. This Dremel bit in particular has been used to make several different bins, as well as cut different metal projects and different plastic projects. So as you can see, they last a very, very long time, and I'm cutting through this like absolute butter. You are going to want to wear gloves, as cutting through this without using a hot knife is going to send little bits of hot plastic flying everywhere, as well as a pair of safety goggles. Even if you wear glasses like I do, I highly suggest just wearing goggles. It'll help when the little pieces of plastic go flying towards your face. Here you can see I'm putting in the feeding bit, and in the video I'm showing where I'm going to be drilling the holes to attach. This is just resting on the outside of it, but on the inside it will go on the inside of it, so the animals cannot get to the plastic and chew. I highly suggest when you're doing your wiring and you're putting in your mesh that you do on the inside versus the outside, so they do not have access to that rough plastic, because that's just going to be enticing for them to chew on, because they like to chew. Most rodents will like to chew on rough things to help file down their teeth. The one downside, as you can see here, what I'm working with is that plastic will get stuck on your Dremel bits. This is another reason to wear gloves, because all you need to do is turn off the Dremel and pull, as you can see, pull the plastic off. The Dremel does get hot, and it is melting the plastic as it's working with it, so be mindful. You'll see me several times pull my hand away decently fast because it's hot, and these get hot enough to melt plastic. So it's for my lids, I like to mark. I like to just drill once I have the metal put down. It kind of just helps make sure that there's no bowing. But on my 4 sides, I will draw where I want to drill the holes. I normally do a series of 3, as you can see here. I'm doing 1, 2, 3. Now the tool I'm using here is a hot knife or a soldering tool. You can get these at Walmart for about $12 to $20. The bit that I'm using is just a pointed one that helps cut through the plastic really well, and it's just a little bit better that I found than using my drill bit, since my drill bit I don't have one that's big enough for these metal zip ties. And here you can see me working with my gloves on, because when you're working with these metal zip ties, they will rub your hands raw, as well as the hardware cloth that I'm using. These are the different pliers that I'm using and the different shears. The shears are used to cut through both the wire and the metal zip ties, as normal scissors will not do it, and it's just kind of better than needle nose or wire cutters. They just add a little bit more force to it, and a little bit more control as well, I found. I recently found these metal zip ties, and I already absolutely love them. They are a bit of a pain to get on, but when it comes down to it, it's all worth it to not have to worry about my rats getting bored or chewing through the metal, or babies coming and testing what the zip ties are and playing with them. I will focus on, in a later video, how to watch for chewers in your colony, but for the starting up, every line starts somewhere, and sometimes you have bin chewers, and sometimes you have plastic chewers, and just making sure that the animals are not going to escape through just chewing off the holders for your hardware cloth is just it's a good peace of mind. As you'll see here, I've cut the entire length of the tub in chicken wire. You'll see me trim it in a few places just to make it fit a little bit better and to not bow. But I do suggest covering as much as you can on the inside with your hardware cloth or chicken wire. This one in particular is hardware cloth. I can't seem to find chicken wire in my area that's the right size, because remember, rats can fit through anything bigger than a 1/2 inch. This is 1/2 inch squares, so they're definitely not going to slip through here, but there are inch squares and above, which you'll need to watch for when you're buying. Because anything larger than 1/2 inch, they can slip their little heads through, and if their heads get through, the rest of them will get through as well. Especially for babies. Babies are very small and very inquisitive, so they will just test everything, and if they can get through, you're going to end up having a little pup running around, and that's not fun trying to catch. You'll see me, the one thing I like about these is they attach really tight, and with just a little tweak of my needle nose pliers, I can pinch them even tighter against the plastic, and there's absolutely no way any animal's gonna slip through gaps and get out. You'll see me edit my holes a couple of times just to make sure that there's an ease of access of sliding through, and once again, wear your gloves because they will rub your hands raw. The process for all 4 sides are the same. You cut out your wire that goes over the size of your hole that you cut through, lay that on the inside, take your zip ties and put them through the holes that you made for your zip ties. You can also use bolt and washers, though they are a little bit more expensive, and I found that a 100 pack of these is about $10, and they work just as well. I don't believe I have the other 3 sides film, but the process again is exactly the same as I mentioned. This bin in particular is going to be used for quarantine. It's not a permanent home for any animal. It's a little bit too small. You might be able to get away with like a baby dwarf hamster, but I wouldn't even put that in here for too long. This could make a good introduction if you're doing a carrier type of introduction, and I'll definitely make a video on that, how to do introduction properly. These are good for taking your animals to the vet. These are good for if you have an injured animal that needs to be restricted in movement, if they're continue hurting themselves, or a simple quarantine cage, that when you want to really watch an animal that just came in, whether or not they look sick to you, or they look off to you, or they're acting funny. Having them in a smaller, lower area is really good to help watch for any medical problems. So that's going to be it for this video in particular. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please leave them in the comment section below, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, ring the little bell. It just helps me get this channel up and going and helps you know when I'm going to be posting another video. Right now I'm going to be hopefully working on a weekly to bi-weekly schedule where I post a video for you guys at least once a week, if not once every other week. The next video is going to be focusing on more of an introduction into fancy rats and why they make such great little pets. I do have a Patreon, which will be linked below. It's simply just an easier way for me to get this channel up and running, as well as help support the work that I do for the videos themselves. I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. If you have any suggestions for a video you would like to see, please put that in the comments below. And until next time, be safe out there.